The throne room of Emperor Thalox was the most beautiful place in 12 star systems. Walls of living crystal pulsed with soft blue light. The floor was made of polished stone from the oldest moon of Velora Prime. Thousands of Velorans filled the massive hall, their skin glowing in different colors as they spoke to each other through light. Emperor Thalox sat on his throne made of black metal and white gems. He was tall, even for a Veloran. His skin glowed bright gold, the color of royal blood. Behind him, his 4 perfect children stood in a line. They were beautiful. They were powerful. They glowed like small suns. But in the shadows of a far corner, hidden behind a pillar, stood his 5th child, Princess Luri. She did not glow. Luri pressed her body against the cold stone and watched the celebration. Today, the Galactic Council had demanded that Velora send a diplomatic bride to the humans of Earth. It was supposed to be an honor, a way to build peace between their peoples. But Thalox hated humans. He thought they were ugly creatures. They could not glow. They could not fly. They lived on one small planet and thought they were important. When they had finally built ships that could travel between stars, Thalox had laughed. He called them children playing with fire. Now the council wanted him to give one of his daughters to these creatures. Thalox looked at his 4 glowing children and smiled. He would never send them. They were perfect. They were valuable. They would marry powerful Veloran lords and make the empire stronger. Then his eyes moved to the shadows, to Luri. His smile became cruel. Luri felt his gaze and her heart turned cold. She knew that look. She had seen it her whole life. It was the look he gave to broken things before he threw them away. She was born different. While other Veloran bobbies glowed from their first breath, Luri remained dark. The doctors said her light glands had never developed. She could not produce the bioluminescence that let Velorans speak to each other through color and pattern. In Veloran culture, this was worse than being blind or deaf. It meant she could never truly communicate. She could never be part of her own people. But that was not all. Her wing membranes, the thin skin between Veloran arms and bodies that let them glide through air, had grown wrong. They were too small and too weak. She could not fly. She could barely glide for more than a few seconds. To the Veloran Empire she was broken, cursed, a shame upon the royal bloodline. For 20 years Luri lived in the dark tower of the palace. No visitors, no friends, only servants who brought her food and looked at her with pity. She spent her days reading mathematics, physics, the history of 100 worlds. Her mind was hungry even if her body was weak. But no one cared what was inside her head. They only saw what was wrong with her skin. Now Emperor Thalox raised his hand. The throne room fell silent. Every glowing Veloran turned to face their emperor. "The Galactic Council has made their request," Thalox said. His voice echoed through the crystal walls. "They want us to send a bride to the humans, a princess of Velora to live among those dark, crawling creatures." Laughter rippled through the crowd. The Velorans thought this was a great joke. "I have decided to honor their request," Thalox continued. "I will send them Princess Luri." The laughter stopped. Silence filled the room. Every eye turned to the shadows where Luri stood frozen. Then the laughter came back, louder than before. Velorans bent over, their skin flashing with colors of amusement. They thought it was the funniest thing they had ever heard. The broken princess, sent to the broken people, a perfect match. Luri did not move. She did not cry. She had learned long ago that tears changed nothing. Thalox smiled at her from his throne. "You will leave tomorrow," he said. "Try not to embarrass the Empire too much." More laughter, more flashing lights of mockery. Luri bowed her head and walked out of the throne room. Behind her, she heard her father's voice one last time. "Let the humans have their gift. They will not know the difference anyway." The ship that carried Luri to Luna Station was small and old. It was the kind of ship used for transporting cargo, not princesses. But Luri was cargo now, unwanted goods being sent to unwanted people. She sat alone in a dark room for 3 days. She had no windows. She had no company. She had only her thoughts and her fear. What would the humans do to her? She had heard stories. Humans were violent. They fought wars with each other constantly. They ate the flesh of other creatures. They could not glow or fly or do any of the things that made Velorans beautiful. Maybe they would hate her. Maybe they would laugh at her like her own people did. Maybe they would lock her in another tower and forget about her. At least that would be familiar. When the ship finally landed, Lurie stood on shaking legs. The door opened and bright light flooded in. She raised her hand to protect her eyes. A figure stood in the doorway, not Veloran, human. He was tall for a human with black hair and dark eyes. He wore simple clothes, not the fancy robes of royalty. His face was calm and kind. He looked at Lurie not with disgust or pity, but with something she did not recognize. "Respect. Princess Lurie," he said and bowed deeply. "My name is Kang Do-yun. I am honored to welcome you to Luna Station. I hope your journey was comfortable." Lurie stared at him. No one had ever bowed to her before. No one had ever asked about her comfort. "It was acceptable," she said quietly. Her voice was rough from days of silence. Do-yun smiled. It was a warm smile like sunlight on water. "Please, let me show you to your quarters. We have prepared the best rooms we have. If you need anything at all, please tell me." He offered his hand to help her down from the ship. Lurie looked at it for a long moment. In Veloran culture, touching a princess without permission was a crime, but Do-yun did not know this. He was simply being kind. Slowly, carefully, Lurie took his hand. His skin was warm, solid, real. As he led her through the station, Lurie saw other humans watching. Some whispered to each other. She heard fragments of their words. "That's the alien princess. She doesn't glow like the others. I heard she's defective, a reject." The words hurt, but then she looked at Do-yun. His expression had not changed. He walked beside her like she was the most important person in the galaxy. "Do not mind them," he said softly. "They do not know you yet. When they do, they will see what I see." Lurie frowned. "What do you see?" Do-yun stopped walking. He turned to face her, his dark eyes meeting her pale ones. "I see a princess who traveled across the stars alone," he said. "I see someone brave, someone strong, someone worth knowing." Lurie felt something strange in her chest, a warmth she had never felt before. She did not know what to say, so she said nothing. But for the first time in 20 years, she felt something that might be hope. Far away, on Velora Prime, Emperor Thalox laughed with his advisors about the wonderful joke he had played on the humans. He had sent them his garbage, and they had accepted it with smiles. He did not know that his garbage was more valuable than all his treasures. He did not know that he had just made the greatest mistake of his life. The first week on Luna Station was the loneliest of Lurie's life. Her quarters were large and comfortable, with soft beds and beautiful views of the stars. The humans had given her everything she could want: food, clothes, books in languages she could not read. But she was still alone. She spent her days sitting by the window, watching the earth below. It was a blue and green world, covered in clouds and oceans, so different from the purple and silver of Velora Prime. Sometimes she saw ships coming and going. Humans lived busy lives. They were always moving, always building, always reaching for something new. Lurie did not understand them. On the 8th day, there was a knock on her door. Lurie did not answer. She had learned on Velora that visitors only brought pain. The knock came again, then a voice. "Princess Lurie, it is Do-yun, may I come in?" Lurie hesitated, the human who had welcomed her, the one who had bowed, the one with the warm smile. "Enter," she said. The door opened and Do-yun walked in. He was carrying a tray with 2 cups and a pot of something hot. Steam rose from the cups, filling the air with a sweet smell. "I brought tea," he said. "A drink from my country. I thought you might like to try it." Lurie watched him carefully. "Why are you here?" Do-Yun set the tray down on a small table. "I noticed you have not left your room since you arrived. I was worried." Worried? The word felt strange to her. "Why would you worry about me?" Do-Yun sat down across from her. He poured the tea into both cups, the golden liquid catching the light. "Because you are far from home," he said simply. "Because you are alone. Because I know what it feels like to be in a strange place where no one understands you." Lurie took the cup he offered. The heat warmed her cold fingers. "You do not know anything about me." "Then tell me," Do-Yun said. "I would like to learn." No one had ever said that to her before. On Velora, everyone already knew who she was: the broken princess, the cursed child, the shame of the royal family. No one wanted to learn anything else. Lurie took a small sip of the tea. It was bitter and sweet at the same time, strange but not unpleasant. "What do you want to know?" she asked. Do-Yun leaned forward. "Everything. What was your home like? What did you do there? What do you enjoy? What makes you happy?" Lurie stared at him. Such simple questions, but no one had ever asked them. She started talking. She told him about the dark tower where she spent her whole life, about the books she read to fill the empty hours, about the numbers and equations that danced in her head, beautiful patterns that only she could see. She told him about watching her siblings fly through the purple skis while she stayed on the ground, about the servants who whispered behind her back, about her father's cold eyes whenever he looked at her. She talked for hours. Do-Yun listened to every word. He did not interrupt. He did not judge. He simply listened, his dark eyes filled with understanding. When she finally stopped, the tea was cold and the stars had shifted outside the window. "I am sorry," Lurie said. "I have talked too much." Do-Yun shook his head. "You have talked just enough. Thank you for sharing your story with me." "It is not a happy story." "No," Do-Yun agreed. "But it is yours, and I am glad you trusted me with it." That night, Lurie slept without nightmares for the first time since leaving Velora. Do-Yun came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. They fell into a routine. Every evening after his work was done, he would come to her quarters with tea. Sometimes he brought food from Earth, strange dishes she had never tasted before. Rice wrapped in seaweed, spicy soups that made her eyes water, sweet cakes that melted on her tongue. He taught her about humans, their history, their art, their music. He showed her pictures of his home country, a land of mountains and rivers and ancient temples. He played her songs that made her heart ache with feelings she could not name. In return, she taught him about Velora, the mathematics her people had developed over thousands of years, the physics of faster-than-light travel, the equations that no human had ever seen before. Do-Yun was amazed. "You understand all of this?" he asked one night, staring at the complex formulas she had drawn on a screen. "This is more advanced than anything our scientists have created." Lurie shrugged. "I had nothing else to do in the tower. I read every book I could find. Mathematics was the only thing that made sense to me." Do-Yun looked at her with wonder in his eyes. "Lurie, you are brilliant. Does your father know this?" The question made her laugh, a bitter sound. "My father does not care what is in my head. He only sees what is wrong with my body." Do-Yun was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Then your father is a fool." Lurie froze. No one had ever called Emperor Thalax a fool. He was the most powerful being in 12-star systems. His word was law. His judgment was absolute. But here was this human, this small, non-glowing creature from a tiny planet, calling him a fool. And he was right. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Lurie began to leave her room. Do-Yun took her on walks through the station. He showed her the gardens where humans grew plants from Earth. He took her to the observation deck where she could see the entire planet below. One night they sat together under the dome of stars. Earth floated in the darkness, a marble of blue and white. "It is beautiful," Lurie said. "It is home," Doyun replied. Lurie thought about that word, home. She had never really had one. The Dark Tower was a prison, not a home. Velora Prime was a world that had rejected her. "I do not have a home," she said quietly. Doyun turned to look at her. In the starlight his face was soft and kind. "You could," he said. "If you wanted, you could have a home here." Lurie felt tears forming in her eyes. She had not cried in years. She had taught herself not to, because crying was weakness and weakness was punished. But here, with this human who asked nothing of her, who demanded nothing from her, who simply sat beside her and offered her tea and kindness, the tears came. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you so kind to me? I was sent here as an insult. I am not a gift. I am garbage that my father threw away." Doyun reached out and took her hand. His skin was warm against hers. "Then your father is not just a fool," he said. "He is blind. He looked at you and saw only what was missing. He never saw what was there." "What is there?" Lurie asked. Doyun smiled his warm smile. "A brilliant mind, a brave heart, a soul that survived 20 years of cruelty and still has the strength to keep going. I see a princess worth more than all the glowing royals in the galaxy." Lurie did not know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever seen her like this. So she did the only thing that felt right. She leaned against Doyun's shoulder and watched the stars. His hand stayed wrapped around hers. They sat there for hours, saying nothing, needing nothing. For the first time in her life, Lurie did not feel alone. And on Velora Prime, Emperor Thalox continued to laugh about his clever joke. He did not know that his rejected daughter was becoming the most important person in human history. He did not know that love was being born in the light of distant stars. He did not know anything at all. 6 months had passed since Lurie arrived on Luna Station. The lonely princess who had hidden in her room was gone. In her place was someone new, someone who smiled, someone who laughed, someone who walked through the station with her head held high. Doyun watched her change with joy in his heart. Every day she grew stronger. Every day she became more confident. The darkness that had lived behind her eyes was fading, replaced by a light that had nothing to do with Veloran bioluminescence. But Doyun knew that Lurie still carried pain. She could not fly. She could not glow. These things that every Veloran took for granted were forever beyond her reach. Or were they? He made a call to Earth one evening. His younger sister, Kang Yuna, was a biomedical engineer. She worked at a laboratory in Seoul, designing artificial limbs and organs for people who had lost them. If anyone could help Lurie, it was her. "You want me to build wings for an alien princess?" Yuna's voice was incredulous. "Oppa, are you serious?" "Very serious," Doyun said. "Can you do it?" There was silence on the other end. Then Yuna laughed. "Send me her biological data. I will see what I can create." 3 weeks later, a package arrived from Earth. Inside was something that looked like a cloak made of silver threads and tiny lights. It was thin and light, almost weightless in Doyun's hands. He brought it to Lurie that evening. "What is this?" she asked, touching the delicate material. "A gift from my sister," Doyun said. "Put it on." Lurie wrapped the cloak around her shoulders. It connected to small patches that Doyun placed on her arms and back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cloak came alive. The silver threads spread out, forming wide membranes between Lurie's arms and body. The tiny lights began to pulse, responding to her movements. She raised her arms and the cloak lifted her slightly off the ground. She was not flying, not truly, but she was gliding, floating, moving through the air in a way she had never been able to before. Lurie gasped, tears streamed down her face. "It is not perfect," Doyun said quickly. "My sister says she can improve the design, Make it stronger, more responsive. But for now, this might help you feel more like. Lurie crashed into him, wrapping her arms around his chest. She was crying, but she was also laughing. The sound was the most beautiful thing Do-Yun had ever heard. "Thank you," she whispered against his shoulder. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Do-Yun held her gently. "You deserve to fly." But he was not finished. The next week, another package arrived. This one contained jewelry, bracelets, necklaces, and a delicate crown. They were made of woven light, designed by human artists working with human engineers. When Lurie wore them, they pulsed with color, responding to her emotions. Sadness made them glow blue, happiness made them shine gold, anger turned them red, love made them pulse with soft pink light. The first time Lurie wore them, she stood in front of a mirror and watched the colors dance across her skin. She moved her hand, and the light moved with her. She laughed, and the jewelry burst into brilliant gold. "I can speak," she whispered. "I can finally speak." For the first time in her life, Lurie could communicate through light. Not in the way other Velorans did, not through her skin, but through this human invention she could express what words could not say. She wore the jewelry everywhere. She spoke with light to everyone she met. Humans learned to read her colors, to understand her emotions without words. She was no longer silent. She was no longer invisible. She was finally seen. Word of the alien princess spread across Earth and beyond. People heard about the Veloran who worked alongside human scientists, about the mathematical genius who was solving problems that had puzzled researchers for decades. Lurie's equations changed everything. For years, human scientists had struggled to understand faster-than-light travel. Their ships could move quickly, but not quickly enough. The journey between star systems took months, sometimes years. Trade was slow. Communication was slower. Lurie looked at their equations and saw the errors immediately. "You are thinking in 3 dimensions," she explained to a room full of the brightest human minds. "But space is not 3-dimensional. It folds. It bends. If you calculate the curve correctly, you can slip between the folds instead of traveling through them." She wrote new equations on the screen. The scientists stared at them in silence. "This would reduce travel time by 90%, one of them whispered. "Yes," Lurie said simply. "It is basic mathematics." Within a year, human ships could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. Trade exploded. New connections formed with alien races that had ignored humans before. Earth's economy grew stronger than ever. And everyone knew it was because of Princess Lurie. The Galactic Council took notice. Representatives from a dozen species came to Luna Station to meet the princess who was transforming human technology. They expected to find a powerful Veloran royal, glowing with the light of her ancient bloodline. Instead, they found a quiet woman in human clothes, wearing jewelry made of woven light, standing beside a human scientist who looked at her like she was the only star in the sky. Reports went back to their home worlds. The broken princess was brilliant. The broken princess was valuable. The broken princess was changing the balance of power in the galaxy. And on Velora Prime, Emperor Thalox finally stopped laughing. He sat on his throne, reading the reports with growing anger. His advisors stood silent, afraid to speak. "She was nothing," Thalox growled. "Nothing but a broken, useless thing. How is she doing this?" No one answered. No one knew what to say. Thalox threw the reports across the room. "I want her back. I want my daughter returned to me. Send an envoy to the humans. Offer them whatever they want." His advisors exchanged nervous glances. "Sire, the princess has made it clear that she is happy on Luna Station. She may not wish to return." "I did not ask what she wishes," Thalox snarled. "She is my property, my blood. She belongs to me." But even as he spoke the words, he knew they were not true. Lurie had never belonged to him. He had thrown her away like garbage, and the humans had found the treasure inside. He had made a terrible mistake, and now the whole galaxy knew it. Meanwhile, on Luna Station, Lurie and Doyon sat together on the observation deck. Earth floated below them, beautiful and blue. The light-woven jewelry on Lurie's wrist pulsed with soft pink light. "You have changed everything," Doyon said. "Humanity owes you a debt we can never repay." Lurie shook her head. "Humanity owes me nothing. You gave me a home, you gave me a voice, you gave me wings. Everything I do is simply my thanks for that." Doyon took her hand. His touch was gentle, familiar, loved. "Stay," he said. "Not as a diplomat, not as a scientist. Stay as yourself. Stay with me." Lurie looked at him, at his dark eyes filled with love, at his kind face that had never shown her anything but respect, at the man who had seen her when no one else could. "Yes," she said. The jewelry around her wrist exploded with golden light. And across the galaxy, Emperor Thalox sent his envoy to reclaim the daughter he had thrown away. He did not know that she was no longer his to claim. He did not know that love was stronger than royal blood. He did not know that he had already lost. The Veloran ship arrived at Luna Station on a cold morning. It was a royal vessel, the kind that carried important messages and powerful people. Its hull was covered in golden patterns that glowed with ancient light. Doyon watched it dock from the observation deck. His hand found Lurie's, and he held it tightly. "They have come for you," he said quietly. Lurie nodded. She had known this day would come. Her father was not the kind of man who accepted defeat. He would fight to take back what he had thrown away. But she was not the same person he had sent into exile. She was stronger now. She was loved now. She had a home and a future and a man who looked at her like she was made of stars. She would not go back to the darkness. The Veloran envoy was a tall male named Torin. His skin glowed with the proud silver of noble blood. He walked through Luna Station like he owned it, looking at the humans with barely hidden disgust. When he saw Lurie, his expression changed to confusion. She did not look like the broken princess he had heard about. She stood straight and tall. She wore human clothes that fit her perfectly. Light-woven jewelry pulsed with confident gold around her neck and wrists. The silver cloak of artificial wings hung from her shoulders like a cape. She looked like a queen. "Princess Lurie," Torin said, bowing slightly. "I bring greetings from your father, Emperor Thalox of the Veloran Empire. He requests your immediate return to Velora Prime." Lurie's jewelry flickered with blue light. Annoyance. "Requests?" she asked. "That is a kind word. I did not know my father used kind words." Torin's eyes narrowed. "Your father is concerned for your well-being. He believes you have been mistreated by these creatures." He looked at Doyon with obvious contempt. "Mistreated," Lurie laughed. The sound echoed through the meeting hall. "You do not know what mistreatment is, Lord Torin. Mistreatment is being locked in a tower for 20 years. Mistreatment is being called a curse by your own father. Mistreatment is being sent across the galaxy as a joke." Her jewelry burned red now, anger. "These humans have shown me more kindness in 1 year than my own people showed me in my entire life," she continued. "They gave me wings when I could not fly. They gave me a voice when I could not glow. They gave me love when all I knew was hate." Torin's face twisted with shock. "You speak of love. With humans, princess, this is madness. You are royal blood. You cannot love these primitive." "I can love whoever I choose," Lurie interrupted. "That is what freedom means, something my father never taught me." The hall was silent. Human officials stood along the walls, watching the confrontation. Doyon stood at Lurie's side, his face calm but his eyes hard. Torin took a deep breath. "The Emperor has authorized me to offer terms, riches, territories, advanced technology, anything the humans desire. In exchange, they return you to your rightful place." "My rightful place," Lurie stepped forward. Her jewelry blazed with every color of the rainbow, emotions too complex to name. My rightful place was supposed to be a dark corner where I waited to die. My rightful place was silence and shadows and loneliness. Is that where you want me to go back to? Your father has changed, Torin said. He sees your value now. He wants to make things right. He sees my value, Lurie repeated slowly. Yes, now that I have proven useful, now that I have made humans powerful, now that the whole galaxy talks about the princess he threw away, now he sees my value. She reached up and touched the royal crest that hung around her neck, the symbol of the Veloran Empire, the mark of her bloodline. She had worn it every day since she was born, a reminder of who she was supposed to be. With one sharp pull, she broke the chain. The crest fell to the floor with a soft sound. It lay there, golden and beautiful and meaningless. Tell my father this, Lurie said. I am no longer his daughter. I am no longer Veloran property. I am no longer a princess of an empire that saw me as garbage. She picked up the crest and placed it in Torin's hand. I am Lurie, she said, just Lurie, and I choose to stay here, with the humans who loved me, with the man who saw me when no one else could. Torin stared at her. The Emperor will not accept this. The Emperor has no choice, Doyun spoke for the first time. His voice was calm and strong. Earth is a sovereign world. The Galactic Council recognizes our independence. Princess Lurie came to us as a diplomat, and she has chosen to stay as a citizen. Your Emperor has no authority here. Torin's skin flickered with angry red. You are making a powerful enemy human. Doyun smiled slightly. Your Emperor made himself an enemy when he sent away the most valuable person in his empire. We simply had the wisdom to see what he could not. The envoy looked between them, his face tight with frustration. He had expected to find a broken creature, grateful to be taken home. Instead, he found a woman of power and pride, protected by beings who would fight to keep her. I will deliver your message, he said finally, but the Emperor will not be pleased. The Emperor's pleasure is no longer my concern, Lurie said. Torin turned and walked out of the hall. His steps echoed through the silence. The doors closed behind him and he was gone. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Doyun turned to Lurie, his eyes full of worry. Are you all right? He asked softly. Lurie looked down at her hands. They were trembling. She had just rejected her father, her empire, everything she had been born to be. But she felt no regret, only relief. I am free, she whispered. For the first time in my life, I am truly free. Doyun pulled her into his arms. She buried her face against his chest and let the tears come. They were not tears of sadness. They were tears of release. 20 years of pain and rejection finally washing away. You were always free, Doyun murmured into her hair. You just needed someone to show you the door. When the Veloran ship left Luna Station, it carried a message that would shake the galaxy. Princess Lurie had rejected her father. She had rejected her empire. She had chosen to become human. On Velora Prime, Emperor Thalox received the news in his throne room. He listened in silence as Torin described everything that had happened. The rejection, the defiance. The royal crest dropped on the floor like trash. When Torin finished, the throne room was quiet. Every advisor, every guard, every servant held their breath, waiting for the Emperor's response. Thalox sat very still. His skin, usually glowing with proud gold, had turned pale. His hands gripped the arms of his throne until his knuckles went white. She chose them, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. She chose those dark, primitive creatures over her own blood. She did, sire, Torin confirmed. Something broke inside Emperor Thalox. He had spent his whole life believing he was superior. His species was superior. His bloodline was superior. Everything he did was right and good and proper. But he had thrown away his own daughter, and she had found more love among strangers than she had ever found at home. He had been wrong about her, about humans, about everything. For the first time in 300 years, Emperor Thalox felt shame. It burned in his chest like poison. He wanted to scream. He wanted to rage. He wanted to send his entire fleet to Earth and take his daughter back by force. But he knew it would not work. The Galactic Council would condemn him. Other species would turn against him. His empire, already weakened by human technology, would crumble. He had lost, completely and totally lost. And the worst part was, he had done it to himself. Far away on Luna Station, Lurie stood with Do-Yun on the observation deck. Earth floated below them, beautiful and blue. The stars sparkled all around them. "Do you think he understands?" Lurie asked. "Do you think my father finally sees what he did?" Do-Yun considered the question. "I think he sees what he lost. Whether he understands why he lost it, that may take longer." Lurie nodded slowly. "I hope he learns, not for my sake, for the sake of anyone else he might hurt." She turned to face Do-Yun. Her jewelry glowed with soft pink light. "Love." "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for the tea and the talks and the wings and the light, for seeing me when I was invisible, for loving me when I was unlovable." Do-Yun cupped her face in his hands. "You were never unlovable. You were just waiting for someone smart enough to realize how amazing you are." He kissed her gently. Above them, the stars seemed to shine brighter. Below them, humanity prepared for a future that had been transformed by one brilliant woman. And across the galaxy, an emperor sat alone on his throne, finally understanding the cost of cruelty. 5 years had passed since Lurie rejected her father's envoy. 5 years since she chose humanity over her own blood. 5 years since she found her true home among the stars. Everything had changed. Earth was no longer a small, ignored world at the edge of the galaxy. It was now a center of trade, science, and culture. Ships from 100 species docked at Luna Station every day. Humans walked on planets that had been forbidden to them before. Earth's voice was heard in the Galactic Council, strong and respected. And at the heart of this transformation stood Lurie. She had become Earth's chief scientific advisor, leading the greatest minds of humanity toward discoveries that changed everything. Her equations powered faster ships, stronger shields, better medicine. She worked tirelessly, not because she had to, but because she loved it. For the first time in her life, her brilliant mind was valued, celebrated, needed. But her greatest achievement was not scientific. Do-Yun stood in the doorway of their home, watching Lurie sit by the window. In her arms was a small bundle wrapped in soft blankets, their daughter, Kang Hana. Hana was 3 months old. She had her mother's pale blue skin and her father's dark hair. Her eyes were large and curious, looking at the world with wonder. And when she laughed, which was often, her skin glowed with soft golden light. She was the first human Veloran child in history. Proof that two species, so different in so many ways, could create something beautiful together. "She is glowing again," Lurie said softly. Her jewelry pulsed with pink light as she looked down at her daughter. Do-Yun walked over and sat beside them. He reached out and touched Hana's tiny hand. Her fingers wrapped around his, and her skin flickered with happy yellow light. "She gets it from you," he said. Lurie shook her head. "I never glowed, I cannot glow. This is something new, something that belongs only to her." Hana made a small sound and nestled closer to her mother. Her light dimmed as she fell asleep, comfortable and safe in the arms of people who loved her. "She will never know what it feels like to be rejected," Lurie whispered. "She will never know darkness and loneliness. She will grow up knowing only love." Do-Yun put his arm around his wife. "Because of you, because you were brave enough to choose love over fear." Lurie leaned against him, their daughter sleeping between them. Outside the window, Earth turned slowly, blue and green and beautiful. Luna Station hummed with life all around them. Somewhere in the distance, ships were arriving and departing, carrying goods and people and dreams across the galaxy. This was her home now. This was her family. This was her life. and she would not trade it for all the thrones in the universe. News of Luri's daughter spread across the galaxy. Some species celebrated. They saw Hana as a symbol of hope, proof that different peoples could live and love together. Other species were shocked. They did not understand how a Veloran princess could have a child with a human. And on Velora Prime, Emperor Thalox received the news in silence. He sat alone in his throne room. The advisors had been dismissed. The guards stood far away, afraid to come close. The emperor had changed in the past 5 years. His skin no longer glowed with proud gold. It was pale now, dim, almost gray. He looked at the picture of his granddaughter, a small creature with blue skin and black hair, glowing with light that he could see even through the screen. His blood, his legacy, growing up in the arms of humans. A message came with the picture. It was from Luri, the first contact she had made with him in 5 years. "Father," the message said, "I have a daughter now. Her name is Kang Hana. She is beautiful and healthy and loved. I wanted you to know that the bloodline continues even if I am no longer part of your family. I hope that someday you will understand what you threw away. Not me. I was never important. What you threw away was the chance to be loved. And that is the saddest thing of all. I do not hate you. I feel sorry for you. Luri." Thalox read the message 3 times. Then he sat back on his throne and stared at nothing. He had 4 other children, perfect children who glowed and flew and did everything he asked. They ruled pieces of his empire. They had married noble Velorans and produced noble heirs. They were exactly what he had wanted them to be. But none of them loved him. None of them visited unless they needed something. None of them looked at him the way Luri looked at her human husband. He had traded love for power, and now he was discovering that power was cold comfort in an empty throne room. He did something he had never done before. He wrote a reply. The message traveled across the stars, from Velora Prime to Luna Station. Luri received it in her office, Hana sleeping in a small bed nearby. She opened it with trembling hands. "Daughter," the message said, "I have made many mistakes in my life. The greatest was how I treated you. I told myself you were broken because it was easier than admitting that I was blind. I sent you away because I could not face my own failure. And now I am an old man, alone on a cold throne, watching my discarded daughter build a family more loving than anything I ever created. I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I am sorry, truly sorry. For everything, Thalox." Luri read the message in silence, then she deleted it. She did not need his apology. She did not need his regret. She had already moved beyond him, beyond Velora, beyond everything that had once held her down. She looked at her sleeping daughter, at the light-woven jewelry on her wrist, at the silver wing cloak hanging on the wall, at the picture of Doyun on her desk, smiling his warm smile. This was her life now. This was her future. And it was perfect. In the years that followed, more Velorans came to Earth, not glowing nobles or proud warriors, the broken ones, the rejected ones, Velorans with dark skin and weak wings and minds that thought differently. They had heard about Princess Luri. They had heard that on Earth, being different was not a crime. They came by the dozens, then by the hundreds. Humans welcomed them all. Doyun's sister Yuna built wing cloaks for those who could not fly. Human artists made light jewelry for those who could not glow. Schools were created to help them learn human languages. Communities grew where Velorans and humans lived side by side. Earth became known across the galaxy as the planet of second chances, a place where the broken could be healed, where the rejected could find family, where the impossible could become real. And at the center of it all was Luri, the princess who had been thrown away, the woman who had changed everything. On Hana's 5th birthday, the family gathered on the observation deck of Luna Station. Doyun was there, his hair now touched with gray. Yuna stood with her own children, all of them wearing light jewelry to communicate with their Veloran friends. Human scientists and Veloran refugees mixed together, celebrating the little girl who represented everything they believed in. Hana ran through the crowd, her skin glowing with every color of the rainbow. She was loved by everyone. She knew no darkness. She knew no rejection. She knew only joy. Luri watched her daughter with tears in her eyes, tears of happiness, tears of gratitude, tears of wonder at how far she had come. Doyun took her hand. They stood together looking out at the stars. "Are you happy?" he asked, the same question he had asked her years ago. Luri smiled. Her jewelry glowed with brilliant gold, the color of pure joy. "More than I ever dreamed possible," she said. Far away on Velura Prime, Emperor Thalox sat alone in his throne room. His other children had stopped visiting long ago. His empire was crumbling as other species turned to Earth for technology and trade. His legacy was fading, day by day. He was learning the true cost of cruelty, the true price of pride. But on Luna Station, Luri held her husband's hand and watched their daughter laugh in the starlight. She had been sent as a joke, a broken thing, an insult to humanity. But the humans had seen what the Velarans never could. They had seen her brilliance, her courage, her heart. They had seen her worth. And in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever. The stars shone bright around them. Earth floated in the darkness below, beautiful and blue. The future stretched out ahead, full of hope and possibility. Luri had finally found her home. And she was never letting go.